Okay, so when you picture Poseidon, what do you see? I'm guessing it's the big guy with the beard and the trident ruling the ocean, right? Well, what if I told you that's only like half the story? Because the real origin of Poseidon is way older, way more elemental, and honestly, a whole lot scarier than you might think.
We all know this version. He's the god of storms, the protector of sailors, one of the main 12 Olympians. This is the Poseidon you see in movies and read about in the epic poems. But here's the thing. This image of him is actually a much, much later development in a really long history.
And that's the big question we're digging into. Before he was ever crowned king of the sea, he was known by a completely different title, a title that connects him right to the ground shaking beneath our feet.
And look, this isn't some newfangled theory. The clues have been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Just like in this line from an ancient Homeric hymn. The Greeks themselves called him the mover of the earth first, and then the god of the sea. That little detail points to a primal past that we've pretty much forgotten.
So let's peel back those layers. We're going to travel all the way back to Bronze Age Greece to find out who he really was. This is where the story gets good.
Right, so forget about Zeus and all the Olympian drama for a second. We're talking about the Mycenaean period, way before Homer was even around. In places like Pylos, Poseidon wasn't just another god, he was a chief god. He might have even been a bigger deal than Zeus back then.
And to get this early Poseidon, you have to understand this word, chthonic. It's not just about dirt. It refers to the gods of the deep earth and the underworld. We're talking about the powerful, raw, and often really destructive forces that live inside the planet. And that was Poseidon's original turf.
And we know this because we've got the receipts. Archaeologists found these incredible ancient clay tablets with the earliest form of Greek writing called Linear B. And get this, on those tablets, Poseidon's name shows up more often than Zeus's. He's called Wanaka, which means king, a title with underworld vibes. But the real smoking gun is the name Inisidaone, the earth shaker.
So let's be super clear. The original Poseidon wasn't the guy you prayed to for a safe trip across the Aegean. No, he was the raw, terrifying power that made the ground split open, a true force of nature. But believe it or not, that's still not the whole story.
Okay, so stick with me here, because this powerful god of the earth was also the father of horses.
I know, it sounds a little random, right? Earthquakes and horses? But in the ancient world, the connection was actually deep and, well, elemental.
You gotta think like this. Horses are these powerful animals whose hooves thunder across the land. Kind of like an earthquake, right? There was even this belief that a horse could make a spring of water gush out just by stomping its hoof. And who else was known for striking the ground to create springs? Yep, Poseidon with his trident.
There's this super old myth that shows this perfectly. The earth goddess Demeter tries to escape from Poseidon by turning herself into a mare. But he's not fooled for a second. He just turns himself into a stallion and continues the chase. Their child was a Rhean, a literal, divine talking horse. This whole story is basically a symbol for the union of the earth god with the spirit of the horse.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing. He was the father of Pegasus, the winged horse. In another story, his mom saved him from being eaten by his own dad by swapping him out for a baby horse. And in some myths, he literally created the very first horse by just smacking a rock with his trident. Horses were absolutely central to who he was.
So what do you get when you have an earth-shaking horse god? Well, you get a notoriously volatile and contradictory personality. This guy was a real wild card.
Poseidon was the definition of duality. With one strike of his trident, he could bring forth a spring of fresh water, or he could cause a devastating earthquake. He could give you calm seas for your journey, or he could whip up a hurricane just because he was in a bad mood. You never knew which version you were going to get. And you know what really set him off? Losing. Oh man, this god was a sore loser. He was super competitive, and he did not handle rejection well at all, which the city of Athens found out the hard way.
So in the famous contest for Athens, Poseidon offered them a saltwater spring, a symbol of naval power. Athena gave them an olive tree, a symbol of peace and prosperity. The people chose the olive tree, and Poseidon's response? He threw a divine temper tantrum and sent a huge flood to punish the entire region for picking her over him. And of course, we can't forget his 10-year-long grudge against Odysseus. All because Odysseus blinded his son, the Cyclops, Poseidon made sure that hero's trip home was an absolute nightmare that lasted a decade. This was definitely a god you did not want to get on the wrong side of.
So how in the world did this volatile, horse-loving earth shaker end up as the sea king we all recognize today? Let's trace that evolution.
Back in ancient Greece, his worship was everywhere. The famous Isthmian Games, kind of like a mini Olympics, were held for him. The Ionian Greeks had a huge festival for him, and in one city, they even held sacred horse races in his honor. You can see how all his different domains were celebrated.
So why the change? Well, it really boiled down to one thing. The needs of his followers changed. As the Greek world became more and more about sailing, trade, and colonizing across the sea, the part of Poseidon that mattered most was his control over the ocean. Suddenly, the protector of sailors became way more important than the shaker of the earth.
And you can see that journey perfectly on this timeline. He starts out in the Bronze Age as this chthonic earth shaker. By Homer's time, he's the master of the sea. Then the Romans come along and merge him with their sea god Neptune, which pretty much solidifies it. And now, today, he's a pop culture icon, almost exclusively known for ruling the water.
Over thousands of years, his complex, kind of terrifying identity got, well, simplified. The Earthshaker was tamed. His story was streamlined for new generations. But the echo of that raw, primal power never completely went away.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. Poseidon's story really shows us how gods can change with the people who worship them. Their identities shift to reflect what we need and what we fear. It just makes you wonder, which one is the real Poseidon? The one who rules the waves, or the one who rules the very ground beneath them?